Welcome to the Shulamite Podcast, an extension of Shulamite Ministries and Shulamite.com, with weekly interviews and teaching with author and speaker Martha Kilpatrick and hosted by John Enslow. This weekly podcast is a way to stay connected to the ministry. So come experience anointed messages, not giving just another method, but a living impartation.
And it has to do with the current situation, John, the triggers. The Lord's been taking me back in my story, opportunities, things that he tried to show me I didn't listen to, I didn't hear, and I shared some with you, Martha. But this one, it just kind of came to me because I've seen it many times in my life, and recently, let me just share this. I was 16, talking about going back, 16 working on a farm, and I had spent 3 days, 12-hour days in hot sun on a tractor, harrowing a field, just going back and forth on a tractor, getting the field ready for planting. And anyway, it was the end of that holiday in the evening, and the farmer came and said, "Okay, bring it on in, we're done." And I said, "I just have one more pass. I'll come in after I make the pass." I went to the end of the row, and of course in Pennsylvania all the fields are small and they have trees, woods all around. Well, there was a tree that was laying down, and part of the tree extended not into the field but close to it. And this was summertime, so the dust as I was harrowing, I mean, it was like grease lightning. I mean, it was an old tractor, not a four-wheel, but a three-wheel. And so I'd gotten a flat tire on the harrow, which meant as I come to the end and make the turn, normally you'd lift up so the weight wouldn't drag, and you make your turn. Well, I couldn't lift. I had to use my brakes. And so as I started to make the turn, it started snowplowing, going straight instead of turning. And this tree that was sticking out, and there were no branches that I could see, it was just sticking out. I hit the brake and it turned, and as I turned, it just caught in the front of the tractor, just caught the tip of it, broke it off. And I was like, oh, whew, that was close. And so made the turn and ran to the end of the field. As I was getting to the end, there was steam coming out the front. And I went, oh, great. What? So I jumped off, and there was a little spike of a branch, kind of like these pine trees when they fall. As I hit it, it just poked a hole in the radiator, just, a hole. So I made it back to the farm and told the farmer, and I don't know if he was triggered, but he was extremely angry. I didn't do anything malicious. It wasn't anything, I was careless or anything like that. It just happened. I worked there 3 more years, and I was never allowed on a tractor again. And I never, it was one of those things that's just always been in my mind. It just made me angry, but it hurt deeply. Like, it was an accident. But it was like he never forgave me. Just wouldn't let me on the tractor. So when this came up with the books, the only way to get these things off would be on a tractor that I hadn't been on since that time. And wobbly forks, offloading, like I said, I've offloaded trucks in a forklift. But it was scary. It was like, okay, I don't want to fail. And I think that's what a lot of my fear, I have great fear of failing. Worked on your plumbing, I failed. I didn't do it maliciously. Helped in the office, I failed. And your response triggered to say no. And I realize now that I never forgave the farmer for doing that, but it affected me big time. And I'm afraid of failing. I mean well, I want to do well. And when I fail, it's like, boom, the consequences. Never again. You won't, you're going to pay for this the rest of your life. That's how I feel. So that's part of what's tied in with this. And the Lord's brought me to a point to know that he has to enable. I mean, I was proud in that I could do, and I would work hard and I'd do the best I could. But with all these experiences recent, he's brought me to a place to know that, okay, he has to make it clear, is it something I need to do? Something he's calling me to do. If he's called me to do it, he'll enable me to do stuff that I have no experience doing. I have no qualms about that. But I really, right now, I'm kind of in this whirlwind of, okay. And then adding driving a truck up a mountain, just kind of, okay, what are we doing here? What are we supposed to do? So I'm backed into a corner that I know that he is able. He will take care of it. He will give me the capability. But I know that I probably need to go back and just forgive and be forgiven. I've never, that has really stuck and has been a trigger for me.
Mm-hmm. That's well said, Dave. That's how it is. It's all about your feeling about yourself. And what, that's great. Thanks for being willing to share that.
Ecclesiastes 3:15, the New Living, what is happening now has happened before, and what will happen in the future has happened before, because God makes the same thing happen over and over again.
I've never read that.
That's God's requires.
God makes the same thing happen over and over again.
What is the reference?
And it's like you recognize that been here before.
Familiar.
In the New American, that which has been. So in the New American Standard, that verse reads, "That which is has been already, and that which will be has already been. For God seeks what has passed by."
What, Dave?
Run a test over again. It's a no failure. We're running it. Able to see.
Failure is a real common trigger. It's certainly a common trigger for me. But a dear woman I loved told me 25 years ago, I can't even remember what I had done that I was just so devastated over. And she said, "Oh, well, you'll do a lot worse things than this before it's all over."
Oh, how encouraging. Oh, my gosh.
But I use that line a lot. You'll do worse things.
Okay, I want to take it on and still being on me as the example, I guess. That's kind. Okay. As you know, I've been through months of sickness. And not really knowing what to do with it or about it or what it even was. I've been to the emergency room twice legitimately, and needful. And there was a little session about my heart. And as the doctors did what they knew to do, John and Joan here listened to God for me. And they said her problem is not the heart, it's sleep deprivation. And when I got into that definition, I got in touch with all the pain and fear I experienced as a child that I thought, oh, shut up and get over it. Quit whining. I would talk to myself so bad. But there was an awful lot of fear in my childhood. Even though I had joy on the second floor of a tree, that was on my terms, I guess. But if you grow up under an alcoholic, usually there's a lot of anger and misbehavior and so forth. But the Lord showed me at one point not to despair over all of it, because I was being trained to help other people. And he said, all your life you will take this little girl and you will relate to humanity by your memories. So everything is orchestrated for a purpose. Who got that all that scripture you read, oh my goodness. It's worth hearing. I want to hear it too.
What is happening now has happened before, and what will happen in the future has happened before, because God makes the same thing happen over and over again.
Well, it's because God's making you into what you want to be yourself. What happens in your childhood, especially if it's about terror and being afraid. Sometimes my precious daddy would come around the corner and be yelling at me, and I don't know what I did. I was just minding my own business. The terror was never over something real, but over something I didn't do or whatever. And know that one person I was confronting her with a number of things that were wrong. And I came back to her and said, you're being made into the bride of Christ. Don't worry about it. It's something wonderful and precious is happening to you because God is making you fit to be the bride of Christ. And that's where we all are, because the end result of humanity, the end of the world, will be the bride. And so that everything has meaning, and everything is preparation, and everything is very carefully orchestrated by God. And when you have that perspective, you may not have a clue of what is happening, but you are being formed sovereignly for your eternal destiny, not for this life. We're all focused on this life. We should be focused on the next life. You and I should be aware of eternity. Things settled here are for eternity. Therefore, Christ in me, the hope of glory. We are destined for glory, which is the light of the presence, visible presence of the Lord. And so it's worth knowing yourself. It's worth going into and taking care of what wasn't resolved. And I'm still learning how much I'm driven by fear and how much Jesus, whoa. He would let his disciples be ambitious, fight, whatever. But when they were afraid, he said, how dare you, in so many words. Fear not. And I've even done a series on how not to fear. I've got to redo it. It's a whole lot more to the story. But your story lies in your childhood. And if you don't know your story, you don't become you. You are being formed. It says he will do for us what he requires of us. He will do it himself. And the secret to that is abiding in him and resting in him. And I'll talk about that another time. But the acceptance without understanding, accepting yourself and your circumstance and your childhood, so forth and so on. And I say it in that little book I've got that we sell a lot of. Accept. The great lie. The great lie is that God is not good. That's the lie. And because we suffer and we have to endure things, we tend to be angry at God about it.
I see that when we suffer, we accept that lie easily that Martha's talking about, that God is not good.
We hope you've enjoyed the Shulamite podcast. For all the latest from Shulamite Ministries, please visit us at shulamite.com, where you'll find Martha's daily devotions, posts from getalongwithgod.com, and the online library of all of Martha's writings. At shulamite.com, downloading the free Shulamite app is easy, and livingchristianbooks.com is only a click away. Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover a God worth knowing.